going on, guys? I'm back with my third video in my 7-video series of just explaining some things that I've prayed about and just want to get off my chest. And just thought should be made known. So I'll just start off by saying hi, I guess. In this video, I'll be explaining just my at least from my understanding, the dynamics of like the streets and how God showed me just different things about professionalism and how to handle money in the streets, or how to handle money outside of a business, how to handle business outside of a business. I'll just start by saying this. Back when I first became a Christian, I was under the impression that drug dealers were, bad people and all this other stuff, as far as, them basically destroying their community for the sake of money. I back then did not, I didn't care too much about, the streets or running the streets or doing anything like that, as far as anything illegal, or, I still don't, to be honest. I'm not somebody that really cares about doing illegal stuff or trying to look cool because you do things that are against the law. It's not really cool, to be honest. But when it comes to making money and doing things under the books, I totally understand as far as how that goes. Back when I first became a Christian, one thing that I still value this, but the reason why I'm bringing up, like when I first became a Christian, is because this is how I thought back then, and so I want to make it plain that this is how I thought back then. Back when I first became a Christian, I was always just in love with the idea of being a humble person, about men being humble and not being too proud, or because the Bible even says, like, God favors the humble. God favors the man who is submissive to him specifically, but in terms of reality, as far as all of humanity, God even favors those who are humble in the eyes of man, because even in the Proverbs it says, a godly man finds favor, not just eyes of God and of the people of God, but even of the people outside of the church. It's not always the case, because as Christians, as believers, we're called also to go through suffering, and sometimes suffering means pain and hurt and even injury. I'm not going to say that I will be injured or that anybody else will be injured, but I do believe that as a believer in Christ, we're called to go through persecution and just struggle. It's gonna happen, regardless of what we want and what we go through. It's gonna happen. So, anyways, with all this stuff being, said, one thing that back when I first became a believer, one thing that led me to the idea of being humble was looking at the streets, right? Today we think when we hear the word the streets, right? We hear, oh, she's for the streets or he's for the streets, or, being a street runner is not something that you want to do, or, doing things in the streets, right? It might not necessarily be to your favor, right? Those things are correct. We shouldn't aspire to be in the streets as far as our relations, as far as business, or as far as even our headspace. We want to be professional, and we want to be faithful and good and right, in right standing in not only public places, but in our relationships and in our dealings. We as far as having people that are professional and genuinely just good as far as business goes, and as far as relations go. Not being in the streets is the goal. But in the streets, you have to move a certain way in order to be successful. And I always thought, as a godly man, as a wise man who has wise principle, right? If it is possible for, if God gives us all the wisdom in the world, and it's found right there in the Bible, and, it's found, it's literally written on our hearts, right? As the word of God says, it says that the law is written on our hearts, right? If the law is written on our hearts, as far as trying to do things with sense and with good dealings, then obviously that doesn't just include in a professional sense. That also includes regular relationships. That also includes me going to buy me going to buy something from my neighbor, like, just because he has it and I need it, right? Or just to get it from him, whatever. Anyways, I thought about these ideas, and I thought, like, if it's just sense, right, for me to go and use my money to buy whatever I need to buy, or to use the things that I have, right, to barter or trade or do whatever I can with the things that I have, that doesn't always have to be in a professional light or in a business light, right? That's technically considered the streets. So I'm a photographer, right? Sometimes I get paid from my work, but it's not in a business setting. It's through a personal setting. Like I might do some work for someone, and then they pay me, say, $100 to $200 to $300 for whatever work that I do for them, and that's a business transaction, right? But it's not considered like a corporate setting or a business setting or anything like that. It's a business deal, right? But it's not necessarily the most professional thing. All right, it's under the books. It is considered as the streets, right? So technically, until a business or a person or an entity, right, is on the books, or is on paper doing what they should be doing, they are technically in the streets. And so, I applied that to every single business idea. The streets is foundational for business. In every business, the streets is how business starts. Before there was corporate, before these buildings existed, before mom and pop shops existed, people were doing what they did in the streets, bartering or just under the table, giving people their service for whatever amount of money that they did their service for. And that was just common sense. That just came to me, when I first became a believer. And I'm not sure why they didn't I'm not sure why that wasn't an idea for me before I before I was a Christian, or before I read the Bible more intently. But I guess God reveals things to people when they come to Him. I wasn't all that wise before I knew Jesus. And one thing that I realized is that as a believer in Christ, I got that wisdom, and I was able to, be wise and whatever with how I went about things. But at the same time, it's like I think at the time I got a little puffed up in that. Not that I even in my wisdom, I had a confidence that was false or not real. Because if you remember in my last, or in my first video, I I had this idea that I was the best Negro around or whatever, but it's only because I saw people seeing me as that. And so because of that, I basically just had this constant thought that, man, what if I really am like the wisest person, and these people look at me this way because I'm this, or I'm good at business, or I'm, you know, I'm learning all these things, and people don't realize these things, but I realize them, you know. So anyways, I realized all these things about just the world and business and people and relationships, and I was like, okay, what if these people really are looking at me like this for this reason? And so basically, I made a bunch of prayers about, some business ideas and things having to do with the streets and entertainment and professionalism and just relationships and business and multiple wives, like I said in my second video, and it I needed God to show me these things in real life, because I hadn't seen them before, and I didn't necessarily know how to go about them besides just to pray about this stuff and allow my mind to drift in this creative whift, I should say. So in the most humblest of ways and the most rational way I could, I said, God, show me these things in real life, and He really has. So yeah, He has. Yeah. Another thing that God showed me was that Christians, even though we are not of the world and we don't live the same way that the world does, right? The church and the world are two different things. The Bible says if you're a friend of the world, you're not a friend of God. You're against God. But we should love the world and sacrifice for them in a way that's going to help them to see Jesus. In the ways that I'm about to explain, it might not be the best ways, but in the most wisest and humblest and sacrificial way, God's shown me that, okay, these things are real, and that especially in this American society that we live in, that sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. God showed me that drug dealers and hustlers and people who, in a sense, run the streets, even pimps and people like that, those people are not the worst people because, well, the streets exist. The streets will always exist. It's the foundation to all business. And even when it comes to drug dealers, right? Drug dealers, I would say this: even if they are serving people things that could potentially kill them, right? Those people are buying things that make them happy. And what drug dealers are, right? A true drug dealer, like a true one that actually wants to. Let's think about let's get in the mind of a real drug dealer real quick, right? The mind of a real drug dealer, if they're if they're good with their business, if they're good with their doing what they do, right? They have to understand that really any business person, right? Any business person is going to have the mind of their customer, right? They're going to find the solution to the answer that their customer is trying. Sorry, they're going to find the solution to the question or the need that their customer is trying to answer or satisfy. So drug dealers, they genuinely want to give happiness to their clients, their druggies, their whatever. As people of God, we want that. We want the happiness, the contentment, the goodness of the people who are in the world, right? The joy of the people who are in the world. And back then, when I prayed about these things, I wasn't necessarily thinking about joy, about the joy only found in Jesus, because joy found in Jesus is something that only Christians can only experience, because we're the only ones that have found contentment in Him alone. Jesus is our joy, is our happiness. We don't necessarily need anything else, even if we would like to have and to do certain things in this world, and God cares about those things, right? Also, ultimately, our joy is found in Christ. But the non-believer, that their joy isn't found in Jesus. They don't understand that. So for me, how I saw it back then is like, if a drug dealer who is a Christian, who actually found their contentment in Jesus, I'm sorry. Let me restate that. How I saw it back then was Christians who actually find their contentment in Jesus can be drug dealers because, well, genuinely, we're just trying to find the joy of those who, we're dealing with, whether it be in business or whether it be in just relational, in it be like, I can't say that's the best mindset to approach to want somebody to be converted to Jesus, right? But I had the thought, like, just because somebody's a Christian doesn't mean that they can't be a drug dealer. Actually, God wants to save people who are in the most humblest of situations, who are in the most terrible of situations, whether they're druggies, whether they're homeless, whether they're doing things just because that, you know, they're stuck in those things, or whether they're a drug dealer. For whatever reason, I didn't see it as I didn't see it as okay, you should, you know, probably stop drug dealing. Oh, yes, I did. I just saw it as, well, it's okay to sell drugs and be a Christian. Like, that's all. That's basically the basis of how I thought. Simply because, well, drug dealers are trying to earn their keep. The word says, if you don't work, you don't eat. You shouldn't eat. Whether or not, whatever context you want to put that in, you can put that in there. I'll let you take your mind wherever you want to go with that. Also, it says, you know, don't be impartial, or don't be bad in your dealings as far as business and with people, and, you know, to be civil with people and whatnot, to seek the joy of the community around. And so the way that I saw that was, okay, being a drug dealer might not be the worst thing. Now, being a drug dealer and not a pharmacist, right, is a dangerous situation, right? It can put you in a spot where, you know, people are coming to you for their fix, right? And now you're in a spot where you're kind of left with just danger all the time, right? But I also saw opportunity as a drug dealer, like, because you don't have to be selling people terrible things to kill them or to put them in situations to hurt themselves. You genuinely could be just like a pharmacist, right? And just be in the streets doing it. You could you could have a herb store, or like a herb garden or something like that, right? And you could be a holistic healer. You feel me? The way that I saw all of that was, okay, you could either be the good drug dealer or the bad drug dealer. You could be one that wants to help people, you know, with your drugs or your herbs or whatever, or you could be the one that hurts people with your money and your drugs and whatever else, right? Generally, I think today we have, you know, people who are kind of in between, right? You have the people who are like who have that more holistic approach to things, as far as trying to in the streets, you know, help people to feel better and to genuinely be healthy. And then we have the people who are over here just wanting to make a dollar, and they sell the worst kind of things to people because those people want it. But then there's the people who are kind of in between. I think that's where most people who are in the streets drug dealing are. They want to make a dollar, right? But they don't want to hurt people. If potentially that could help people, they would. And you know, they want to point people in the right direction to get their fix in the right way. Because if we're being honest, most people in this American society I mean, we take drugs not for the sake of necessarily recreational purposes, but for the sake of just feeling better about ourselves. Everyone drinks caffeine. Everyone drinks coffee. You feel me? I don't drink coffee. I probably should, the way I be tired all the time, but I don't drink coffee. I don't know. I'm just weird. Everyone takes ibuprofen, right? Everyone takes painkillers. Everyone, well, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people smoke weed, right? A lot of people, go to the store and get the tobacco from from behind the counter at the gas station and stuff like that. They get the Black and Milds and stuff like that. I ride the MARTA and I be seeing people hustling, selling the alcohol shots all the time. There are people who drink a pretty healthy amount of alcohol every day, right? A healthy amount of alcohol every day is like I think like what, a 12-ounce beer, and or a 6-ounce cup of wine or something like that. Whatever, like there are healthy amounts of things that can be consumed, for the sake of not only enjoyment but for your health, and these all kind of fall under the umbrella of drug dealers, whether that's in the streets or you're professionally a pharmacist or whatever other term there is in the professional world for pharmacy. So yeah, I remember I saw all of that, and I basically I prayed that God would show me these things in real life and show me these things in real time. And because at the time I wasn't necessarily convinced about all this stuff, that not only he saw these things as okay, but that that the world around would see these things as okay. And I mean, whether or not people see them, people see it as okay. That's not for me to care about. But at the same time, I want to love people and care about people and, give people the satisfaction that not only do I care about them, but that God cares about them, and that God cares about their joy and their happiness and them feeling not just good, but feeling healthy. Anyways, so drug dealers aren't bad people. Generally, they're just trying to make some money, and they want to give people what they need as far as their fix. Now, I do pray for the people who generally are only trying to make money, and they're out here selling things that are terrible for the human body, and those people, I'm not gonna say that they deserve hell, but I do think that even when it comes to dealing with, let's just think about the person who sells cocaine and sells methamphetamines and LSD and a lot like very high potent hard drugs, right? I do think that even those people, I'm not going to say that they're bad people, because even recreationally, people want to take drugs, and there there's always going to be a want for that, because people, for whatever for whatever reason, in our sinfulness, right, we just have this innate want to what's the word to I'm not sure what the word is. Just to feel different, I guess, to feel something other than what we normally feel, right? And I've heard, it's not because I don't say that out of just having experience with people who deal with drugs or whatever. I say that out of just knowing people. Like, we all have the want to just to have adventure and to be spontaneous and to do things that are different, predominantly when we're young and we don't know better and stuff like that. But when it comes, especially when it comes to drugs, I think people get adventurous and want to, just try different things. I thought that even those people who sell hard drugs and stuff like that, they aren't the worst people, because they're just providing something that people want. Whether or not those people stay healthy on those things, I can't say that it's only the fault of the drug dealer. I will say that it's everyone has a choice, right? If you decide to take drugs, or you decide to do whatever you need to do as far as consuming stuff that isn't normally put into your body, well, you have to take responsibility for that, and you have to understand that soberly you chose that. Excuse me. And you have to understand that being a part of this world is doing things with good judgment. Whether or not you're able to do that soberly or without any extra consumption, that's up to you. You need to decide what you can and can't do. So yeah. And so anyways, I thought about all this stuff as far as, drugs and drug dealers and, the streets, and how there'll always be the want and the need for all these things. And I prayed about it. I was like, God, if these things are real, if this is how these things are, right? Show it to me. And he has. Now, I also needed to understand that there's leadership when it comes to this stuff, because there's just no way that the streets exist just all by itself. Like, just because people are out here selling drugs, right, it doesn't mean that everyone's out here killing each other every day. That's not how things are, like, if that was the case, it's not like people would be dying not just for the sake of drug deals and stuff like that, but because of them going to sell their stuff to their neighbors, that's it's just ridiculous. Like people would die for owing people money for things that for things that they just owe on, and that doesn't just include drugs. That includes household items and let's say even a car. Like you can borrow a car from somebody or rent a car from somebody, right, and not pay your debt, and when that debt comes, you're left to have to pay that. I've realized that like people can literally owe somebody and have to pay off debts that they that they literally might not be able to pay off, and that's not just dealing with the streets. That's even in a corporate setting. You feel me? Like I think the U.S. government and business here is the biggest just money show that there is, But anyways, with that being said, I was like, there's no way that even in corporate settings do people not either just like how things are in the streets, either you pay your debts or you fulfill your word and do what you need to do, like just like how those things are in the streets, right? I was like, there's no way that these things don't happen in a corporate setting, as far as even people dying and things happening to people for business reasons that can't otherwise be handled besides someone being murdered or something like that. And basically I was like, God, if this is the case, show me these things. And he has. Let's fall back down. When it comes down to leadership in the streets, right? Ultimately, I think at a base level, I shouldn't say ultimately, but I'll say at a base level, when it comes to the streets, right? You need, like, having people on your side will help you to be successful and to do what you need to do, right? So that led me to think, like, okay, a tribe, matter of fact, a gang. If someone were in a gang, right, they could, run the streets with people and their gang, right, and be able to not only make money in the streets, but also to, just handle things in the streets in a wise way, in a good way. Because if we're being honest, having people on your side matters. Not just in terms of people knowing you and people wanting the best for you. But even in terms of, you know, doing things business wise, or doing things to handle certain things, having somebody on your side or having somebody with you helps, because strength is built in numbers. Even Jesus, he sent out his people, by twos, and I don't think there was ever one disciple that Jesus sent out when he was alive that was by himself. Like, not one. Even the apostles, they had people with them that were behind them or alongside them to carry out the mission of the gospel, the mission that Jesus sent them out on. And so at a base level, the streets, is a big money gang, but at the same time, it's a big gang and tribe game as well. And whatever gang and tribe, is the biggest, will ultimately come out on top. So I prayed about all these things for God to give me understanding on them, and for God to show them to me in real life. Like, is being in a gang, is it a humble thing? Is being a drug dealer, is it a humble thing? Is being in the streets for business purposes, or for the sake of being able to feed your family, right? Are these things okay? And I'm 30 years old, and God has shown me through just different experiences, and just knowing people, and having conversations with people and stuff like that, that of course we see it in our culture as far as music and stuff like that, but God's shown me these things, that it's really okay to be, like, you can be a good person and be in the streets. So this led me down just a long line of things that impacted me to understand as far as the streets, right? This like my mind just went so crazy with a long list of ideas and a long list of just things that, anyways, my mind went down just a long list of, sorry, I had to answer my door. Just my mind just went down a whole long list of things that to me just seemed like, okay, this is all common sense stuff that can be done for good reason, while at the same time, being a godly person, being somebody that wants to not only be be impactful for Jesus, but also be just wise in how you go about dealing with people and dealing with money and stuff like that. But at a basis, I just stuck with things that were in Black culture and that always have been in Black culture, as far as the media and entertainment and pimps and drug dealers and stuff like that. Because growing up, I always saw these things as terrible, and I always saw, I always thought of rap music as not good music to listen to, because it it kind of degraded my mind and stuff like that. But when I got saved and Jesus freed me to start to understand things about the world, I was like, wow, these things can be used for the sake of gain and for the sake of someone progressing in life. And so I just prayed, like, God, if these things are okay in real life, like, give me examples of these things and show me examples. And I there are many examples of it, and many things and people that just reminded me of these things. And so tying all of this back to my first two videos, right? I'm seeing people look at me this way as if I'm the quote unquote good Negro, best Negro, whatever. I am starting to understand that it's not necessarily like a bad thing for a man to have more than one spouse, right? Give me a second. My bad, I had to attend to something real quick. But yeah, I'm seeing that a man having more than one partner isn't necessarily the most terrible thing, because God allowed it in the Old Testament, and that was for a reason, right? Morally, it was a practice for a reason, and so I'm seeing these things, right? And I'm like, God, if all of this stuff is true, and you, for whatever reason, like for whatever reason, this stuff is illegal. Like, why is it illegal? Why is it bad that, that weed specifically is, why is weed illegal? If we knew that weed had medicinal purposes, right, and other drugs that are natural and can naturally help people, like, why are these things illegal versus alcohol and prescription drugs that are literally just put in the hands and the arms of people for the sake of them being stuck on it for the rest of their lives, right? Why is it a problem for a man to have more than one wife, right? But we have homosexuality that doesn't even really bring about any kind of life for real, as far as birthing and the real purpose of sex, which is reproduction. I mean, of course, there should be pleasure found in sex, right? But that's where babies come from. So there's life found in heterosexual sex, and if you can have more life, through having more than one woman, my mentality was, okay, why not? Because it was all found in the Bible. Like, why the heck not? So I prayed about these things. I was like, God, if these things are true, show them to me, please. And He did, in very drastic ways. The one thing that all of this stuff, I think the one thing that brings all this stuff home for me was adding value. I wanted to see things in terms of adding value to a situation. So if a drug dealer, right, was drug dealing, or if he sold his drugs, right, what value did that bring to him? Was it only, him making money? Was it the purpose of him helping people? Was it the purpose of him learning about, different drugs for the sake of recreational and therapeutic and medicinal purposes? What value did this bring to the drug dealer? As far as being in the streets, right? Let's even bring up a prostitute, right? What value does her selling her body to other men bring? Like, is it strictly she's just a sexual fiend and she wants to, make money off of, her sexual appetite? Or is it strictly, her just wanting to make money off of selling her body? That's another thing, like, that I realized is with the whole, multiple wives thing. The reason, like, another reason why, like, I think I mentioned this already, but another reason why I'm okay with, people who are gay being in marriage, right, and prostitution, is because people are naturally sinful, and sex is something that we naturally just want. And because we naturally want it, and because we're naturally sinful, we're going to naturally, in ways, fall to that sin. I mean, even the Bible says it. Like, this is the hardest thing that we will deal with in our life, as far as sex, as far as temptation, and that's sex. Like, there's even like 3 or 4 chapters in the Proverbs. I forget how many chapters in the Proverbs specifically about sexual temptation and sexual sin and sexual, stuff. So back then I just saw, like, I saw it as, wow, people are going to deal with sex, and that's just something that we can't get around. Like, we're going to deal with the fact that we need and crave and just want sex, right? And you can imagine, as a young 21, 20, I don't know however the heck old I was, how I just was like, I'm okay with this whole idea. Like, especially with women generally just wanting to be loved by their men, and by men generally just wanting to be respected by their wives, or by their women that they deal with, or whatever. I saw all this, and I was like, okay, men who are better in bed, who perform better in bed, right? They're going to be respected more. Women who are less promiscuous and less, what's the word? Who are less sexual, they're going to be not only respected more, they're going to be loved more, and sought after more. Is kind of back. I mean, it's kind of backwards how men, we get respect based upon our sexual performance, but it's whatever. I guess I think that's just a part of life that we'll have to deal with. I don't necessarily like that, but it's kind of whatever. I was gonna say something else. Yeah, I don't advocate for men being basically hoes and putting yourselves out there like that for everyone, or for any woman for every woman to take part in your what you have as far as your sexual activities or your seed and all other, and that stuff. But I do highly believe that men who are better in bed are more respected than men who aren't better in bed. But I do also believe that men who are chaste as well, I think that is respectable as well. So however you want to deal with that as a man, and however as a woman, however you want to deal with that, I guess you deal with that. But yeah, like I said, with all of this stuff culminating to the streets, right? I saw all of this as, excuse me. I saw all these things, and I basically just came up with a bunch of ideas, and I prayed about them, and at some parts I actually held up my cell phone to my mouth, because as we all know, we have AI and Google Voice and microphones in our phones. And back when I prayed about these things, I was also kind of skeptical that people would be listening to our conversations through our phones, which I'm not totally wrong, because there are lawsuits against companies, basically because of them being able to prove, basically because of people being able to prove that their microphones in their phones are kind of hindering their lives, I guess. It's kind of to me, it's kind of there's two sides to everything, I guess. There's a good side and a bad side to having certain things. And the good side about having cell phones is we get to contact and talk to whoever we would like to, as long as they have a phone number. The bad part about that is our calls and our text messages and everything like that. cell phone companies have record of these things, and those can be used for the sake of criminal and just different things regarding our background, criminal backgrounds, our general backgrounds, evidence for certain things, anything like that. So, anyways, back when I prayed about back when I prayed these things and whatnot, I held my cell phone up to my mouth, not because I was on the call, but because I thought, like, okay, if I want these ideas to come to life, right, I need some kind of insurance. So just in case people might be hearing me through my phone, right, I'm gonna hold up my phone to my mouth and let the cell phone company and people who are hearing me possibly through my microphone on my phone hear me. So anyways, I'm not totally sure if the people who were who had the who run the cell phone companies and whatnot, if they recorded all the audio of my prayers and stuff like that. But I will say there have been a lot of things that have happened, to make me believe that these companies heard me. I won't get completely into that yet. But it all is and was confirmation for me that, wow, God really cares about what goes on in this world as far as not only business, but as far as the streets and as far as just daily human lives and, how we conduct ourselves on this planet to go about just being well in the world. For good and even for bad reason. It's kind of crazy to me, but yeah. Oh yeah, and the thing about high value, that's where I want to get back to. What made somebody high value in my eyes back then was how well of a person overall they were in any area. So if, let's say, you're a very spiritually gifted person, you have a lot of gifts that God has given you, right? Let's say you're somebody that is very wise, right? You have a lot of value in wisdom. If you're highly gifted, you have a lot of value in your gifts. If you're financially stable and you're able to live well off, you have a lot of value in your finances. As a person, making these prayers and saying these prayers and having all these things, doing all these things as far as the things that I said in my prayers, right? And seeing them happen and and doing things along with people and stuff like that, and seeing these things in real life, like my overall goal was to be a high valued person, someone that is not only of course, you know, someone who is financially good, but not just as far as my finances, someone that overall as a person is well, someone that genuinely wants to be and is valuable in the things that he does, the things that he is, and the things that he says and brings about, you know, being high value in saying these things. It was very important to me because like no one wants someone that around them that isn't valuable. Like as a believer, I'll be around people that don't benefit me because I want to help them. I want to make sure that they're okay in not only in Christ but just generally as a person. I want to make sure that they're well. But I can only do that if I myself have value in areas that I can help them with. I can only be valuable to somebody if I have value in an area. So being high value was very important to me. It doesn't just include money, and it doesn't just include my finances and how I can provide for people, but it includes my emotions and my mind and my heart and my gifts and my just everything about me. I think that everyone has value intrinsically because we're made in the image of God, right? But how God, gifts us, how God blesses us as far as tangible and material and just the things that we are, right? That makes us valuable in different ways. Being highly valuable was something that I, aspired to be. And so I pray all these things with the intent of being highly valuable. Now, I'm not just going to sit here and say that just because you're valuable in spirit, that's just the standard, or that's all you need to be, right? Like as a man, especially if you're talking about having more than one woman, right? You need to be valuable. You need to be filled to the point to where you're able to take something like that on. Not only because it's going to be a headache, but because if you're not valuable, in that sense, you're not going to be successful in that regard. I do think that if you're trying to take on more than one, partner, that financially, of course, you should be highly valuable. You should be able to take on that course of action, because otherwise you're not going to be successful in it. And it's just what it is. it's hard enough to be in one relationship and not think that, that you can be or do whatever as far as taking care of somebody. Like, I have a girlfriend right now, and she stays in Africa, and that's where she's from. It's hard for me because right now, this has been a hard year for me. I spent some time in jail, and I'll explain some of that in my next videos. And now I have a record, and getting jobs is harder now. I can't find. It's hard for me to find stable work, and the work that I do have, they get back to me they wait for forever to get back to me, because I have to have a long and extensive background check, and just different things that haven't worked out for me as far as my finances. And remember what I said about me, praying about, having multiple women or multiple wives or whatever, and me meeting these women. I've met all of them, but, I'm not valuable right now to the point to where I can even take care of one woman. So I do think that God is very wise in that not only is it a good idea for you only to have one woman, but it's a much more stable position for you to be in, because it's just easier. Like, you don't have as much of a headache to deal with, Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say that women are headaches, or that they only, bring strife to men, and that they're only good for certain things, right? But I will say that in a relationship, it takes work. It takes work. And if you're striving, right, to have more than one relationship, that is double the work. Excuse me. And after that is triple and quadruple and quintuple the work, like, it's hard for me to see how these rappers do it, how to see how all the men and women who have money and, have that, that high value in whatever regard, right? It's hard for me to see that, how they do all these things, because it's literally, it's hard to juggle all of that, especially being somebody that, that wants to be sane. Whew. Anyways, man, I'm saying all these things because these are things that I prayed about, and, I've seen in different ways in which, my prayers have been answered in real life. And, if it is a thing to where these companies, as far as the cell phone companies and, whoever else, they heard the audio and stuff like that, that I, about my prayers and how I held myself up to my mouth and whatever else. Like, I really do, just want to clear the air, if it makes sense, that I mean well. I say these things not because I just want to be seen, or because I want to be some kind of figure, but because I want to be sane. I want to confess things that are just on my heart. I want to be honest, and get to the nitty gritty of just being Kadeem, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So that's all I have for this video. I'm gonna get into more into my next video, and I think this is where you know, a lot of the things that I've been dealing with will be made clear as far as that goes. So thanks. I'll talk to you later.